Hi, guys. So, today we're going to be talking about leadership. And as we look to the future and toward your graduation, you need to begin to start thinking about leadership, what that means, and more importantly, what it means to you. So, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And the bottom line is that without leadership, no organization or entity is going to go anywhere. So, in one way or another, the fact is that we're all leaders. It doesn't matter if you're a parent or a CEO, you're still a leader. The degrees of leadership may be variable at times, but someone at some point is looking up to us, and this should cause you pause when you think about your actions and the consequences that they may have. I would venture to guess that every single one of us has worked under somebody that was a leader, so to speak, but they didn't live up to that role in the way that we expected. With these kind of leaders, it feels like you know that you're headed in the wrong direction, but you are powerless to do anything about it. That's an example of the type of leadership that you do not want to exemplify. And we tend to learn from these type of leaders what not to do and make mental notes along the way of how we would handle things differently if we were in charge. As with anything, it's important to study good leaders and to some extent the bad ones so that we can learn from their experiences. Being a leader is another example of a lifelong learning skill that needs to be part of your lifelong learning plan, and it's an ever evolving process. Always be mindful of where you've been is what I've found is one of the best tools about being a good leader. Empathizing and being able to relate to your team in order to accomplish the task at hand. So let's look at some of the elements of leadership from various aspects and give you something to reflect on as we move forward in this course. I love this quote, and I feel like it really defines what leadership really means. It says, "You can do what I cannot do, I can do what you cannot do, and together we can do great things." It's about the coming together of the team to make something work that requires all parties to succeed together. So let's move on to talking about some of the shortcomings that are often associated with leadership, because it's just as important to understand what not to do as it is to understand what to do. So the Peter Principle talks about somebody who's really, really good at what they do from a technical standpoint. It's assumed that if they move up in the leadership ranks that they're going to be able to transfer their knowledge to others. But in reality, they're just really great technicians, say, and that's what they ought to stay and be. And oftentimes they're not successful leaders because they just lack leadership skill set. So a good leader will use these great technicians to enhance their program, which will reward them for their skills where they already flourish. So recognizing your team's talent is another quality of a phenomenal leader that we will discuss later on. The Prince by Machiavelli. This is the ruthless, iron-fisted, take no prisoners kind of leader, and it's manifested in this book. So one would hope that this type of leadership is disappearing from the landscape, but I can think of many examples to suggest that it is not. In this ineffective type of leadership, people operate out of fear rather than as a cohesive team. So those are just a few examples, guys, of what not to do in a leadership role. All right, so we can't talk about leadership without looking at a few great quotes. So first one, John Quincy Adams here. "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader." Remembering the difference between a boss and a leader, a boss says go and a leader says let's go. I love that one. And then treat employees like they make a difference, and they will. These are all super spot on as far as what a good leader inspires people to do. So the whole concept of leadership is that you have some degree of power, and how you utilize that power determines your effectiveness as a leader. Be careful and be mindful when taking on a new leadership role and the perspective of others around you. A ready, fire, aim leader is the type of leader that can get you into trouble very quickly as well. These are the type of leaders that make decisions and move ahead without clearly having all the facts in hand or an understanding of the potential unintended consequences of their actions. Their management style can result in a lot of wasted energy on the part of the team and can also create a great deal of disrespect from their team. So people will follow a leader that has a depth of knowledge and has actually walked in their shoes in such a way that when that leader issues directives, they take into account how that policy impacts the people in the field. It's important to never lose that empathy among your team. I can't stress that enough. Great leaders are also very reflective. They're aware of what they're doing and where they are going. They're transparent and they communicate effectively with others their vision. This allows your team to trust you, knowing that you will be open and honest and that something everyone can get behind and support. Transparent and truly reflective leaders stop and determine how their actions impact the entire team. So in the materials I provided this week, we look at several articles about being a servant leader. A servant leader is a support system for their team, and they ensure that they ensure that the team really does succeed in all of its endeavors. Someone who is a servant leader earns the respect of their team members, and this is the kind of leader that we really should all strive to be. So one of the key characteristics of a leader is that they're a visionary. They can look down the road in anticipation of the opportunities and obstacles that may be coming their way in the near future. And a chess player leader is the opposite of a ready, fire, aim leader, in that such a leader has to have time to think about the entire process and the ultimate end goal in terms of the decisions that they make. So this ties back into being a visionary, and that you really want to be looking down the road, several moves ahead, properly positioning your team members to be successful. And such a leader would also draw in its team members to help with the strategy. So it's just kind of a good visual to think about chess as a part of being a great leader. Another great characteristic of a strong leader is the ability to delegate. They must be able to delegate to the members vital portions of the responsibilities related to the team activity. However, the leader also knows that if the delegation does not work out and the ball is dropped, ultimately they'll be held accountable for that error. That's why a good leader fully understands the strengths and weaknesses of their team and the ability of the team member to carry forward with the delegated task. So now that we've talked a little bit about what a great leader looks like and doesn't, let's look at some of the elements that make up being a good member of a team. So one of the main learning objectives at Boise State University is for students to be able to function effectively in a team or a group setting. That explains why so many times in your classes you'll have group activities, because we're trying to replicate the team setting that you're going to experience after you graduate, or many times already have. So many times employers have come to the university and they ask us to graduate students that can work effectively in a team setting to solve problems and accomplish tasks. So that's what's trying to be simulated with so many group activities. But on the other hand, interestingly enough, keep in mind how important too it is to be able to work independently. I have worked at so many places and so many graveyard shifts where there were only 2 of us techs on at a time, and my partner was in surgery all night, and it was just me, without a nurse in sight, miles away to assist with something that I needed to get done. So you have to learn to be creative, think outside that box, and function as a leader to yourself sometimes.